My nutrition client lost 6 pounds in 6 weeks, going from this to this after being stuck in a pretty big plateau during a summer cut. And here's the kicker. I don't feel overly hungry at all. I have felt great. I was shocked by what a difference maker that was. Starting with number 1, bumping up the energy burn. Here's the simplest answer here. When things slow down during a weight cut, when you're in a fat loss phase and you're doing everything right, you're sticking to things, you're pretty sure you're being accurate and you're moving enough, things have probably slowed down because you're no longer in a true energy deficit. Or you could be, it's just taking longer to see results, and that usually comes with some frustration. So when I started working with this client, I figured this could be the case. Now, I didn't drop her food levels down or make any big changes right off the bat. I wanted to be patient with this process and give her a full week at what she was currently doing to see if that was truly the case. So we kept things the same and remained patient, which can be really tough to do. But after that week, I noticed that things didn't change anymore. She truly was in a plateau. So it was time to push things further. And given she was on a short timeline, she wanted to do a weight loss or a fat loss phase for around 12 weeks. We were on a short timeline, so I knew I wanted to attack things from both sides. You see, to lose fat, you need to be in a calorie deficit, which means you're taking in less calories than you're burning, which means there's two sides to this equation. On one side, we have all the calories you take in, all the calories you ingest. This comes from your food and drink. And on the other side, we have all of the calories you burn. This is through the daily movement that you do and exercise, as well as the calories and energy you burn just keeping up with normal daily processes through your basal metabolic rate, or BMR. But we can't really change our BMR in the short term, but we can move more. So knowing this with this client, I made a small food drop around 80 calories per day, but I also brought up her steps, or the movement she was doing, an additional 2,000 steps per day. Oh, an additional 2,000 steps, that doesn't seem like a lot. It's not gonna be something that's going to be the huge difference maker, but think about it this way. It isn't just the additional 2,000 steps, taking her to 12,000 steps total. It's the fact that most days she's now going to shoot for 12,000 steps, whereas some days where she was a little bit extra tired and not feeling like she could push it because she's in a fat loss phase, those days where she was taking 6,000 steps, now across the board, she's doing 12,000. So the magnitude of difference is quite a bit higher now. We're just evening out the basement here, as I like to call it. Those low days are the days that don't tend to get captured. Now we've just raised everything up. She's taking 12,000 steps each and every day, and things, I'm assuming, are gonna move. So we made these changes, and what happened? The weight came off almost instantly. Her weight dropped around 2 to 3 pounds over the course of 10 days. Did she lose that much fat in that time frame? Absolutely not. That's not how this works, but we did see that big scale drop. Now, chances are, if she would have just remained patient and stuck with it, we could have saw something similar through time. But sometimes those drops and those changes that we make also help us push harder on a psychological level. And it allows us to drop some weight relatively quickly, weight that we had on a fat loss basis already lost, it just hasn't shown up yet. When we make these type of changes, we push a little bit harder and our body releases some water and the scale comes down. Or it could be the fact that we think this is going to work and all of a sudden weight comes down. We release a little bit of stress, we believe in a little bit more. These are all things that are off paper changes that make a big difference. And that's what we saw with this client. Now keep in mind, this could have happened without the changes, but the changes helped expedite the process, move things quicker, and I was happy to see that. You may remember this client from a previous video, the one titled Setting Up a Weight Loss Plan for a Nutrition Client. This client came to me looking to get leaner, and she was already in the middle of her cut. She's 5'7", 26 years old. At the beginning of her cut, she was around 141 pounds. When she came to me, she had already lost around 5 pounds. She was sitting around 136 pounds, but then she was currently at that plateau. But she really wasn't sure why things had slowed down. So she reached out for a specific reason, to troubleshoot this process, to get some help and support, and to get things moving again, because she had been going through the initial stages of this process on her own. So her reaching out and getting some support and accountability is, in my opinion, one of the smartest things you can do. That's why everyone should have a coach. That's why I hire a coach in different capacities and facets of my life, both nutrition and training, but also business, because it can be really tough to see what you're up against when you're doing things by yourself or alone. Which brings me to my next point. Number 2, hiring a coach is a complete game changer. The reason why this client shattered this plateau and then ended up losing 6 pounds in 6 weeks and moving through everything wasn't a secret strategy. It was the fact that she now had a strategy. She now had a strategy from a coach. One of the smartest things you can do is when you're facing something is to reach out to someone that's been exactly where you've been. For some reason, human beings like to make things much harder on themselves than they need to be. Struggling at it alone, figuring things out, making mistakes that they really don't need to be, spinning your tires. The truth is, people have been in the situation that you've been in, and they've accomplished the things that you want. They've made it through that process of where you currently are to where you want to be. They've achieved all the stuff that you want, and they've helped others do that. All you need to do is take that first step and reach out to them. And if they're good, they'll cost money. And I know this feels like truly a cost because you need to pay something up front. But in my experience, the more money you pay, the better off you are, because the less time you'll spend wasting trying to figure this process out. Coaching is the game changer here. Someone to invest in your progress, someone to hold you accountable, someone to make the tough decisions for you, make changes, sometimes hold things exactly the same and remain patient, because it can be really tough to be objective with ourselves, as well as have someone in your corner to make things fun and make them sustainable and actually enjoy this process. Because when you're coaching yourself through the process of fat loss, you can make it more aggressive or harder on yourself than it needs to be. And you would think in theory, this would make the process easier or go faster, but in reality, it tends to make it harder because you push too aggressively and then get off track and end up doing something like sabotaging yourself or not being as focused because you're too aggressive in the first place. For example, a few weeks after this client reached out to me, we started to work in a strategy to her fat loss plan that I knew would be a game changer for her. And here's what she had to say verbatim about this change, about this strategy that we worked in. I don't feel overly hungry at all. I have felt great. I was shocked by what a difference maker that was. Here's what we did. We started to work in higher carb refeeds. If the concept of refeeds are totally new to you, here's what they are and why they're important in fat loss phases. So higher carb refeeds are typically done for physique sports when someone's got substantially leaner and they're starting to feel flatter because their carbs have been reduced and they've been in a deficit and they're starting to burn up quite a bit of energy and they don't have much energy left in the tank, because we hold carbs as muscle glycogen for our muscles to do work. Or conversely, not in the exact same way, but higher carb refeeds or reloads are used in endurance sports before a heavy bout of training or before an event to super compensate the amount of carbs that you're holding. These are two similar things. The latter is for performance. The former in fat loss phases or for physique athletes are typically for after a period of time, you've been on a deficit for a long period of time, your energy levels are starting to fall, your appetite is coming up. Higher carb day or higher carb meal will help you replenish some muscle glycogen stores, start to feel a little bit more like yourself, have a boost in energy, and also provide some psychological relief from dieting. Typically what we would do is for one day, bring someone's energy intake or their calorie levels closer to maintenance levels and make up that difference from additional carbohydrate. For most individuals, this will be between 50 to 120 grams of additional carbs per day. We can sometimes bring their protein a little bit lower and add in a touch more fat just because they're going to be working in different food choices in some cases, things that they hadn't traditionally been dieting on. If you're on really low levels of carbs because you're on a fat loss phase, maybe you can't work in pasta as often. This would be a good opportunity to eat that. But we work this in for one day. Someone's body weight will typically go up a little bit the day after. That's okay because you're just holding a little bit more water. But the difference it makes to your energy levels and your training and your overall mood is substantial on a diet. So there's a couple things at play here. Part is like physiologically, you feel a little bit better and you operate a little bit better. It puts a little more energy in your tank. It's definitely one of those one step back for two steps forward approaches, especially when it comes to sustainability around diet. The difference it makes long-term is helpful to keep you on track, but also gives you a big mental relief from dieting. So we worked this into this client's plan 1 day per week, and it was a complete game changer. She went from feeling super low energy and somewhat sluggish to being able to push ahead, push through training, work her steps up even more, and feel better overall. That's why she got so much leaner. Now, before we move on to our last point here, the one thing I wanted to highlight is if you're enjoying hearing about these coaching scenarios and the confidence you build through learning about these scenarios and putting your own clients through them or getting some clients and starting to coach others, you got to check out our Dr. Mark Method Nutrition Certification Program. This is the exact same thing we take our coaches through, and we help them almost instantly work with clients through these scenarios. It builds tons of confidence. If you want more information about the actual program, enrollment's going to open up quite soon. Go to the first link in the description below and check it out. Now, here's what the client had to say about this experience, about working with a coach. It's been really fun for me to see what a difference it makes to have a coach that is very results driven, seems genuinely invested in my progress, and challenges me. Now, this client had worked with a coach before, but she didn't quite get the exact same experience. It felt somewhat transactional, a one sentence, here's your plan type of thing. And that could have turned her off from coaching, but gladly it didn't, and she reached out to me. Now, this is the type of scenario that can be common in online coaching because you're not always meeting with a person face to face and building some of that rapport and relationship. The one thing I do in my own coaching to overcome this is that I do not all of the check-ins live, but I use video recording to talk over the check-ins. So the clients get to see me talk about what they're going through and make any adjustments and see how invested I am in their progress. And this is really helpful for clients because they can really feel your presence and feel like you're invested in their results. If you've never heard or seen me talk about my hybrid check-in process and you want to check it out, I got completely free training on that process. All you need to do is type the words hybrid in the actual comments below, and I'll send you over the training. And that's it, folks. That's how this client lost 6 pounds in 6 weeks after being in a pretty bad plateau. We did this by digging a little bit deeper into her deficit, as well as using some strategy to help her push a little bit harder, those higher carb refeeds, and the accountability, support, and guidance that came with coaching helped her push through all of this. That's why in my experience, nutrition coaching is changing everything, and we need more passionate people like you involved. Now, as great as all those tips are, if you're really serious about starting a nutrition coaching business, the next thing I'm gonna have you do is check out this video I've linked up right here. Today, we broke down the process that helped this client lose 6 pounds in 6 weeks. Maybe you want a little bit more information on how to set up a weight loss plan for a nutrition client. I'm gonna teach you how to do that in this video right here. So check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video.